I don't see it yet.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Suzanne Grossman. For those of you who don't know me, I direct career services here at the Marxe School, and I'm with my team member Samantha Bruno, who's our assistant director. We also have our faculty member who is part of the decision-making process for the Excelsior Fellowship, Marco DeSenia, who you'll hear from later. And this is our annual event where we bring back alumni from the Marxe School to talk about the New York State Excelsior Service Fellowship, which is a 2-year fellowship post-graduation in Albany or New York City. So we're very pleased to have 3 fellows from the second year of their fellowship, and then 3 who are brand new, who are going to talk about their experiences in the fellowship. There'll be plenty of opportunity for you to ask questions. And then a little bit later, because we are a large group of speakers, we will aim to do one breakout room where you'll get to randomly be assigned to one of our alumni, and you'll get to ask any questions you might have. So without further ado, we will have each fellow introduce themselves and say, what agency were they placed at? Are they in Albany or are they in New York City? We have a good mix here today, and then a little bit about their work just to get us started. And I'll do that in alphabetical order by first name, which would start us off with Fatima.
Good afternoon. My name is Fatima Dukure. I am working with the New York State Homes and Community Renewals. I work in the finance and development team with programs and operations. I have been very lucky to work on a number of amazing projects, and currently just finished working on some of the inquiries for the state of the state. I'm involved in the budget process because we look for money any way possible. And I work with the press team on a lot of our press releases that go out on whether the governor is doing ribbon cuttings or announcing new projects that are groundbreakings. And I also do conversions to permanent financing. So I do some underwriting. I am in a lot of different projects here. I've been very lucky. So, okay.
Thank you. Giselle?
Good afternoon. My name is Giselle Guerrero. I am at the MTA. I am in my second year. Some of the projects I'm working on. So the department which I work in is the Department of Diversity and Civil Rights. We have 10 ERGs for people that don't know. ERGs are employee resource groups. So that's what we're working on now. We oversee them, and I assist with some of the membership lists, like analysis, and also like program initiatives I'm trying to kick off, such as speed mentoring and MLK service day, and updating some of the documents for them to create other ERGs as we continue to grow. My position is really interesting because this department has only been in existence for a year. The MTA went through a transformation, so we've only been for 1 year for like all of the MTA. So we all have we're developing that part of the department. So yep.
Great. Joanna?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joanna Green. I work for the Department of Health, AIDS Institute, Office of Drug User Health, Harm Reduction Unit. I'm based in New York City. I'm a second-year fellow. My primary work is focused on women who use drugs, so reducing stigma and increasing access to care is what I focus on. For women pregnant and parenting people who use drugs. I also do some contract management with syringe exchange programs in the city, but it's really throughout the state, managing their budgets and offering programmatic reviews of their work and making sure that the way they spend their money is in line and they're meeting certain data points, basically.
Great. So you all are it just happened to work out that you're all in New York City and you're all the second year fellows. So now we're going to hear from our first year fellows all in Albany. Jonathan?
Hey, I'm Jonathan. I am a first year fellow, and I have a slightly unusual position. I work both at the Department of Health and at the Executive Chamber, which is what we call the governor's office. I work in the health portfolio there. So I work largely on Medicaid issues at the Department of Health. We just finished negotiating a huge 2-year waiver for $6 billion in federal funds to expand Medicaid to cover a number of health-related social needs like housing and food nutrition. So we announced that yesterday at 10 a.m. And a couple hours later, the governor gave her annual State of the States and also announced a number of our health initiatives. I think we had 87 that we're putting forward this year, including one that I worked on, and I am finishing writing the bill right now on medical debt. So it has been a whirlwind first 5 months, but it's good. Oh, and I should say I'm also in New York, but we do have to go up to Albany from time to time.
Right. I forgot that. Okay. Peter.
Hi, everyone. My name is Peter. I'm also a first-year fellow, so I've been on the job for about 4 months now. I am full-time in the executive chamber, which, as Jonathan mentioned, is what we call the governor's office in New York, and I work on the infrastructure portfolio. So we have a relatively small team of kind of 2 to 3 people, depending on the day. And essentially what we're trying to do is bring some coherence and just generally wrangle the infrastructure portfolio in New York State. Infrastructure spans many different agencies, obviously transportation agencies, but also environmental projects, parks projects, all sorts of projects. And so our kind of primary task is to bring some coherence to that and manage that portfolio of projects. It's also been a busy time getting ready for State of the State, which was yesterday. We launched a new website at infrastructure.ny.gov to kind of report out on some of the infrastructure projects that are ongoing in the state. And I am up in Albany.
Thanks. Victoria.
Hey, sorry. Hey, everyone. My name is Victoria. I am with the Department of Transportation Commissioner. I work primarily in the Office of Policy Planning and Performance. I'm up in Albany, and we're in a really awesome time just with the bipartisan infrastructure law and so much money out there for really cool infrastructure projects. So part of my job has been understanding how we can make sure New York communities are getting as much money of that pie available, especially through the discretionary grant program. So right off the bat, I was able to work on a grant to help us secure some more funding for the 81 Viaduct project, which was awesome. I got to work on a Thriving Communities grant and submit that in a really fast period of time. And it's like Jonathan said, it's been a whirlwind for a lot of us. I know there's so much work to do, but I feel really lucky. I'm primarily working on rural transportation issues and moving in this direction of community-focused transportation, that transportation is a means to solve problems, not just get people from point A to point B, even though that's obviously important, but where are the added benefits, the social and the community added benefits. And it's really cool to see this department really lean into this new direction of transportation. So it's just been fantastic. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. I think you're all giving a sense of the richness of the work that you're doing and on behalf of the state, which is great. Next, can you tell us a little bit about being a fellow? So what does that mean versus, say, just getting hired as a state employee, whether that's the cohort experience or professional development, or what's it like? Yeah, anything you want to say about just the fellowship experience, I'll leave it kind of open. We can go, I don't know, does somebody have a first thought, Victoria?
Yeah, I think something that I think was talked about in these info sessions, but like didn't actually understand until I was sitting in the seat is what an advantage this program is compared to a lot of the way people get into state government. It's an incredibly difficult process, and the civil service, I have, the second year folks have already had their day of understanding civil service. We're about to get ours coming up, but we know it's like a really complicated system that this program allows you to enter into the state in a way that you don't have to take the civil service exam right off the bat. I mean, obviously, that's something that, depending on the positions you go for or your goals, you will eventually probably have to. And that's also a great part of this program, is that you're not doing it by yourself. There are these experts who are helping you, who have been in government forever, who can give you a sense of what the process is like before actually just like getting online and having to figure out the civil service test or how to get into state government by yourself. So for me, I had no experience in state government before this. And I don't think I would have been able to really navigate this very easily without the Excelsior Fellowship, in the sense of how to navigate how hiring happens in the state. So that's something I'll start with, just that's a really great advantage. That it is a one of a kind program, that like you wouldn't get that type of education plus working at the same time. And the two together, the pairing of that is what makes the experience. You're seeing it full circle. You're seeing how the state operates, and you're the one player also in your office and doing a lot of hard work there too. I'll let other folks speak.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I think everything Victoria said is right. I think the one big thing that I would add, just sort of carrying on from that, is you really couldn't apply for the job that I have right now. And if you could, I 100% would not have been considered for it. So I'm in a position that I absolutely would not be in without the fellowship. And that position is at times maybe too high for my actual experience, but that actually makes the job really great. I'm in a lot of high level meetings. I'm able to actually do, I mean, my second week of work, I was assigned my own project. And I've carried it through right now. Like I said before, we're in like the bill drafting process, and that is just a very rare experience. And it's certainly something that if I were applying for an entry level job, I would have never gotten the opportunity to do. So, I think one thing I will add to that is that I think the fellowship experience really varies from person to person, depending on where you get placed, who your supervisors are. So I think some people don't necessarily get that experience, but I will just say my personal experience has just been sort of amazing in terms of what I've been able to do. And I kind of constantly am reminding myself that this if I were in some entry level job, I would have never been doing any of this. So I really appreciate that.
I want to add to what Jonathan said quickly, and of course, Victoria, they all right. And in my experience, it's also your interaction with senior leadership. And on my particular agency, they are invested in my success. So the more that I was able to show what I'm doing, the more, as you said, high level projects I was assigned to. Now they're very comfortable saying that Fatima is representing the agency for this project, which I'm very excited about. So again, it's true. If I were to apply for this position, even though I feel like I qualify for it, but they would never pick me. So to be able to showcase your talent in this manner, and I feel like it's a unique experience, and it's the only way in my opinion, that you could get to this level.
Definitely echo everyone else's thoughts. I will say, on the kind of other side of the ledger here is the fact that as compared to other state jobs that you would get going through the traditional civil service process, this is obviously just a 2-year fellowship. And I think a lot of fellows go on to do great things. I work with folks in the governor's office who are former fellows and are now assistant secretaries or senior policy advisors. But at the same time, there's a lot of stability and security if you're working for the state through the traditional civil service process. And it's kind of a slightly different ballpark when you're coming in through the Excelsior Fellowship program. And just one note is that I think there are some forthcoming changes to New York State's civil service hiring processes. So for all the folks who are out there who are interested in working for the state in some capacity, I would also keep your eyes out on kind of the normal channels, because I think there's some stuff coming down there that may facilitate the hiring process for recent MPA graduates.
I would like to add that I agree with everyone. I'm working on projects that are probably above my pay grade or level of knowledge sometimes, and I have sometimes immense responsibility, and I love that. I would say that for some fellowship positions, it is a 2-year position, and they don't have a budget line for you to continue on afterwards. So that is something to keep in mind, that like my personal experiences, I'm working with my supervisor and they really want to keep me on. They told me that very early on. But on the other hand, they don't have a budget line for me yet, and it is nerve-wracking. So sometimes the fellowship is used to fill positions that they can't otherwise get work done if they don't have a fellow or an intern or whatever, what have you, working on it.
I would say that with the fellowship, you have access to a lot of exposure depending how you would like to use it. Usually when you are, at least for us at the MTA, like they make a lot of, they do a lot of like tours for us and things of that sort. So it'll be like track safety. They're trying to make sure that they like roll out the red carpet for us. I don't know about how other people do at other agencies, but they're very excited and very happy because like Joanna said, um the budget line doesn't come from them, so they're able to outsource our work through the state. So it's like that's a that's a benefit to them. So they're making sure that the experience is a good experience. And then at that same time, because you're going to have panelists coming, because the development that you have once every other month, I myself have taken it upon myself and I contact them. Like I'll say, there was someone that came, I think Nicole Keefe or something. I can't remember her name. I think her first name is Nicole. And I emailed her because she does diversity work, but for one of the state agencies, I think for DCAS or something. So things like that, like I wouldn't have met her in any other way had it not been through the fellowship. The same thing, like we were able to volunteer for the inauguration of Governor Hochul. That's something else. So I think it's all about, as I stated, like your focus and your goals in regards to what do you want out of the fellowship. I think that's always something that you should be aware of. But I think the fellowship can definitely be used as a stepping stone and things of that sort.
Great, thanks everybody. For those of you in Albany, that's Victoria and Peter, how was that transition? Just briefly, was there support given to you? I think both of you might have already had established relationships in Albany. I can't remember exactly, maybe not, but yeah, because I think something to know is that there are a lot of placements in Albany and ideal candidates, and we can talk more about this later. People are wondering, ideal candidates are open to both because it makes you more flexible. But as you see here today, there are New York City spots. So it's tricky because the placements are not announced until later in the spring after Baruch's selection process. But just as far as the Albany transition, Victoria or Ryan, thoughts on that? Peter.
Peter, go ahead.
Okay, I'll kick it off for the Albany crew. So I had actually had plans even while I was living in the city. I lived in the city for I think 8 years, and I had been planning with my family to make a move out of the city. So this was kind of coinciding with some of our plans. We ended up moving to a very small town south of Albany, and we bought a house over the summer. So this kind of dovetailed nicely with the fellowship starting at the end of the summer up here in Albany. So that was a slightly stressful process as those things go, moving and relocating and everything else, but generally went smoothly. Not sure that there's a ton of formal support offered through the fellowship as far as relocation goes. I think if you get tapped for a position that's starting in Albany and Victoria maybe have more experience with this, but I think it's kind of on you to sort out your living arrangements and to be able to show up on day one ready to go. I will say, I think my experience in the fellowship was that saying that I was at very least flexible or even had a desire to be up in Albany, I think worked in my favor. I think there's a big appreciation or value placed on fellowship, or I'm sorry, on flexibility for fellows, because the way the application and assignment process works is that they have a list of positions and then they have a list of candidates and they're trying to get everything to match, but not everyone's going to be able to get their first choice in terms of location or position. And so I think coming in with the attitude that you are flexible in terms of what you may end up doing or where you may end up doing it is definitely a pro if you can kind of afford to be flexible in that manner.
Yeah, there wasn't any formal help in the relocating, but I also found that to be fine because this isn't an internship. A lot of people, like when I said this, they're like, "Are you going to be living at Albany's dorms or something like that?" No, it's fully on your own. You're applying for an apartment, and it's much easier to apply for an apartment in Albany than it is in New York City. So that is something to think about, that it's just not as much of a daunting process. You also have a little bit more time to plan. It's not like a 30-day quick fast turnaround. There's more time, which with that being said, I'd say my advice, if you end up coming up here, is to start very early. I think that's what helped me. This was my first choice. Same with Peter, really looking to like move. I had gotten sick at the end of my graduate program and really New York wasn't feasible for me anymore in living. So I wanted to move and I was very excited to move. For folks who are worried that Albany is like its own world, I grew up in upstate New York and then spent a really good amount of time in New York City. And I personally think Albany has a wonderful balance. It's nothing like a city like Syracuse or Rochester in the sense that you can use public transit very easily. Our ridership's actually grown since the pandemic and people love CDTA, I think, personally. Not love, okay. There's problems with it, of course. It's transportation, but I have a car, but you can absolutely navigate the city without a car. The folks who I've talked to who are born and raised in New York that have come up here, a lot of them miss home, of course, but pleasantly surprised that there's a pretty nice New York City type of population and representation up here. I find there to be a lot of New York influence, the pipeline, if you will, between New York and DC, or excuse me, New York and DC. New York and Albany is very strong. I think it's only 2.5 hours. And this area is it's such a gateway to, Massachusetts, North. There's so much to do. Like if you are trying to maybe see, the pandemic changed so much for us that a lot of people are looking elsewhere to live, new opportunities. It's a whole beautiful world up here that it's hard. I'm sure it is very hard to leave New York for so many people, but the grass is greener up here. And if it's only 2 years too, it goes by really fast. So if you don't love it, you're right back down in New York and forget Albany even existed. But all I'm saying is I personally have loved my months here so far. I'm in a suburb. DOT is in Colony, which is a little bit outside of the city. So I got the option to live or to kind of have a little bit more flexibility in where I wanted to live. I chose more of like a suburban apartment kind of complex, but you have a lot of options. I would recommend coming up here for a day or two if you can, if that's something that you're worried about and not understanding the area or wanting to see what it's like. I would do that. And, like work on your credit score and stuff like that, and like look around and see what's available. So that's my take on that.
Great, that's helpful. Appreciate the Albany plug. Let's see. I think I want to turn to just a little bit about the application process. And I put in the chat the link, which has all the information. Some of you have already filled out that form, which just gives us a sense of who's interested and helps us track. But the deadline, I don't want to say the wrong thing. Our internal deadline at Baruch is Wednesday, January 24th. And there'll be an interview. And I think at this point, I'll have Marco DeSenia say a couple words about the committee that does the interviews and review process.
Hi, everybody. That was, by the way, that was great. Suzanne, could we have asked for a better representation for the program? I know you curated this, but you guys were absolutely fantastic. And I want to apply. By the way, I'm Marco DeSena. I'm the faculty member at Marxe who chairs the admissions committee. And we have I have other faculty members on the committee, and we also have a member of the alumni on the committee as well. And so I'll be quick, pretty straightforward what we're looking for. We're looking for someone who is well-rounded and who wants the fellowship, right? So what I mean by that is when you're applying for this, the best application, I'm not saying everybody did this, I'm saying that if they didn't do this, then they made it seem like they did this, which is you applied for this program. You wanted this program. And what does that mean? It means you knew about the program. You knew it was a 2-year program. You knew it was a fellowship. You knew you had to commit to Albany. If now we're getting a little bit more relaxed in the last 2 years, where applicants can state a preference for New York City, but obviously if you say you're open to moving, that's more of a chance for you. You open up your opportunities. But it's someone who understands this program. It's a state government program. It's not city government, it's not federal government, it's not other states, it's New York State program. So it's understanding state government, communicating, displaying that understanding of state government, how it differs from city government, how it differs from federal government, the role it plays in New York State, and just a little bit about it. And that you are interested in state government, that you're interested in this fellowship because, and here's the thing, you could be interested in the fellowship for lots of different reasons. You could be interested in the fellowship for a different road that'll take you, or that you can use it down the future. All of that is fine, well and good. What you should not communicate to the committee or on your application is that, yeah, you don't really love state government, you're not really sure, but you've heard from others that this is a great way to get into city government, that you can network, which is, by the way, true, but that's not what the program is looking for. And we have to, as we are sort of deputized by the program, by the state, to run the admissions process on our end. And just kind of to pull back the curtain a little bit, from our end, we are looking for people who really want this program and who will do great things with it. And that doesn't mean that you're committed to a life of state government in Albany. No, that doesn't mean it. But it does mean that you're open to it for the considerable future, and that it's not the worst thing in the world if that happens, right? It's that you understand the promise and you understand the role and you understand. You heard all 6 of those stories about the work that they're doing, and that will make you that much more prepared, and also just interested in all that good stuff going forward. And so that's what we're looking for. There is no one candidate. There is no one type of candidate. It's not something that we're looking for somebody who is a great, well-rounded candidate all around for that would be for whatever program, right? That would be just a sort of great hire. As I talk to the committee before we do it, I always say, would you want to hire this person to work for you, right? That kind of thing. Or would you want to hire this person? Would you want to work for this person eventually is probably more accurate for us. But that is short what we're looking for. I know that doesn't answer a ton for you or give you a ton of specifics, but as you, I hope, are doing for any job, really any job, and I mean, I know it's time consuming or even maybe a little corny or weird, but with any job, what you want to do is you want to think about that job. You want to apply for that job. You want to make your resume fit that job, that application. You want to rewrite your essay, start from scratch, or maybe use just the base of it stuff for that job, for that question. You want to think about that application, right? So it should never be an, oh yeah, I'm applying to this, oh yeah, and the Excelsior, right? So you want to make it it's standalone Oregon seem like that. That's what we're looking for as a but I'll gladly take any questions.
Thanks, Marco. And Sam put in the chat that we're hosting the Writing Center will be leading, but we're kind of co-hosting a personal statements writing workshop next week. Because that does end up being the substance of the application. It's a resume, personal statement, unofficial transcripts. They used to have a requirement for letters of recommendation, and they actually eliminated that, making it easier for all of you. So you just list references. You don't need the letters anymore. So the personal statement becomes quite important in the process. And then we have our deadline. There will be, not everyone will get an interview, but we'll have interviews on a Friday. Virtually, they're very short. They're 15-minute interviews. And then we have to tell the fellowship folks by March 1st who Baruch's nominees are. And we'll be sending over 4 and then an alternate. And some years we've ended up with 5 and even more, because at the last minute they have placements they have to fill. So so anything's possible, but we definitely usually have 4 that we're looking for from the pool. Is there anything, we don't have to have everybody say something, but I know there was a question in the chat about I think especially once you get to the fellowship interview and the placement piece, like anything about the interview process or advice based on your experience to the fellows who are here. So I know that sort of question of how to position yourself when you're trying to be flexible, but you also have specific interests or skills. Like how did you handle that interview?
I can go. I think a good way to think about this fellowship is it's a pipeline of young talent into state work, and they are looking for people with transferable skills. So when you're interviewing, I don't handle ambiguity very well. So this was a tough application for me because I was like, I don't know what I'm applying for. This is ridiculous. To be quite honest, like, what am I doing? And so I think thinking about your ideal position actually and what you want out of a position, what kind of work you want to do is really important. And at least with my cohort, we got to rank. I think we were the first cohort that got to rank our top 4 or 5 choices. So be strategic, and I might not be allowed to say this, but if you want to work in the city or you want to work in Albany, also consider the placements and where they are. I just happened to really want to work in public health, and I got lucky that it was also a New York City base because I am a city girl, and Victoria and I might butt heads on opinions about relocating. But yeah, think about how you can be an asset no matter what job you're applying to.
I definitely agree with what Joanna said. For myself, I had, prior to joining the fellowship, I already had 10 years of working in the city. So when I looked at the fellowship, I wanted to do a career change. Like I did a lot of work with human resources, like Medicaid, people who were HIV positive, child support. So it was a lot of like HRA work for resources in regards to that. So I really wanted to work in diversity. So that was what I was interested in, was the work in diversity. So I am a city girl at heart as well. I did 4 years in Oswego. I am like okay on this, like on living upstate. So those were the only two things that I really wanted to do. I wanted to work in diversity and I wanted to stay in the city. So when I went to the interview with Kara, like you also look at the positions, like Joanne said, and the only other position for diversity was actually for the Parks Department. So then the decision was mine. Did I want to move upstate for the Parks Department? And to be honest, sometimes I think about it because the person that's working for Parks is doing a lot of great work. I met her supervisor. She's very vibrant. So it's all about, like pros and cons. I think that originally when I applied, those were like my two ideas. Those were my two goals and my 2 points. So everything else I was open to, but that's where my passion lies. And to be honest, like it did fulfill what I wanted to fulfill, which were those two goals. So when you go for the interview, you also have to see why are you so tied to these opportunities or these particular positions. For me, I was tied to it because this is where I wanted to go. I did my capstone on it actually. So that was part of my argument and they also agreed.
So one thing that I think might be helpful for people to understand is that the two parts of the interview process are quite different. So sort of the first phase, I remember I interviewed with Marco and someone else who I apologize, I've forgotten their name. But that was sort of more of a traditional interview. We were talking about sort of my interests and what I wanted to get out of it and those kinds of things. The second round of the fellowship interview, at least for me, and I don't know what other people's experience was like, it was quite different. It was less of sort of a formal interview and more of a conversation about what my interests were. I think one thing the fellowship is really committed to that I think is good is they don't want to place you somewhere you're going to be unhappy. If you don't want to move to Albany, they don't want you to move to Albany. I mean, they do want you to move to Albany, but if you really don't want to go, like it's not in their interest to set you up to sort of be unhappy. They want fellows to finish the program. They want fellows to be happy in the program. And frankly, like the purpose of the fellowship is that there's an unbelievable need for talent in the state government, and state government has been really hollowed out over the last few years, and they really need good people. So they want you to succeed and they want you to be where you want to be. So when I went in for my second round interview, it was really more, I had ranked things, but it ended up being like quite a lengthy conversation about they actually were very helpful in explaining to me, hey, this position, this is what this is actually going to be like. Is that something you're actually interested in? And I sort of actually rearranged things while I was there, saying like, based on what you're describing, that's not really what I want to do. This is what I want to do. And they said, actually, this would probably be a better fit for you. And in fact, when they asked me what my interests were, and I told them that I was interested in Medicaid, they said they'd literally never heard of anyone ever who was interested in Medicaid. And the current Medicaid director is a former fellow, and they said, like, do you want us to call him and see if he is interested in having a fellow? And I said, yeah, that's literally exactly what I want to do. And so they actually sort of created the position that I'm in for me. So there's actually a lot of flexibility there. And if you don't know what you want to do, sort through the options and sort of think about what you're interested in. If you really know what you want to do, you should just tell them, because they have a lot of flexibility to make things happen. And so I just think people should understand that. Or again, this was my experience.
I would definitely echo that. One thing I'll say is that I think the fellowship program managers are really outstanding and do a lot of great work. And if you move forward in the process, you'll meet Kara Pangburn and Brittany Camiso. And during that second round interview that Jonathan was mentioning, it's definitely not your kind of traditional interview. You've already been nominated by the school and you're kind of assumed to be a strong candidate for the program. And it really is a collaborative kind of homing in on what you are interested in and what is going to be beneficial for you and for the state. And just kind of hearing from other folks on this call and other folks that talked to you in the fellowship program, I think a lot of us kind of did end up getting our top choice or among our top choices. So they definitely will work hard to put you in a spot that's going to set you up for success. The caveat there is that, of course, not everyone can always get their first choice. So I would just kind of always keep in mind that you should be able to look through the list of placements, and there should be at least a handful that you would be happy to end up getting assigned to. If there's only one job on that list that is kind of your dream job and you wouldn't be satisfied with anything else, I would kind of think twice, because you may get it, but you also may not, and you don't necessarily want to be committed to 2 years in a position that you don't expect to be happy at.
So I think at this point, we're going to do some, just one breakout room, and that everyone here who's interested in learning more will get a chance to ask whatever questions from the fellow that you are randomly assigned to. And Sam Bruno is setting that up, or set it up already.
Yep, so we're gonna open all the rooms. Everyone will be assigned randomly. We're gonna come back around 1:55 just to do closing numbers. All right. So all the rooms are open. If you have not received an invitation to join, just let me know and I can see you.
Suzanne, can you remind me, if I graduate in June, am I only eligible in this cycle?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. One,
Right.
one time of eligibility, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Sure. Okay,
That was great.
yeah.
That was great. That
Yeah,
was great. They were great.
I just invited like all of our current fellows, and then these ones all said yes, so.
That was great. God. Well, so like, what good work we are doing. We have to be doing something right. It's not them, it's us, clearly.
Exactly.
Wow. Suzanne, if you want to pause the recording and then you can start it again. Yeah.
Okay. Hope you all had good conversations in your groups. We'll just ask if the others come back, and we'll do any final words of wisdom. Is that everyone, Sam?
Yep. It looks like
Okay.
everyone's here.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're just going to do a wrap up. I hope you had good conversations in your breakout rooms. And final remarks from our fellows. Anything that came up in your smaller groups, or any last things to say about the fellowship that you think would be helpful for people to know. Let's start with Joanna.
Oh, okay. I was hoping you'd call me last.
We can have you go last.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I'm just going who I see on my screen. Fatima.
Any last, during the breakout room, I was letting them know that it could be in your personal statement, it could be something that you have volunteered for. In my specific case, I wanted to be in affordable housing. And because I live in the Mutualama and I am on the board, I understood the preservation, the asset management aspect of, I guess, the business. So I was able to highlight that and use that as a foundation. And that coupled with my capstone, which I did on master plan, providing a master plan instead of these piecemeal mayoral initiatives, I was able to leverage that to really become a strong candidate. So feel free to look at all your experience and what you can highlight. That's
Great.
and it's a wonderful opportunity.
Awesome. Giselle?
I would say to be intentional about what is the reason you're applying for. You don't have to know like specifics, but if, like, for me, I wanted a career change. So if I like, what exactly do you want of it? And then I think that it's a great opportunity. Like I said, like it's a 2-year fellowship. 2 years flow like it goes by so fast. Um, so definitely be intentional about what you would like from it, and then make sure that as you apply or if you get in, you even keep that afloat as well, so that when it's over, you've met your goals, I think, throughout. It is like you do hit the ground running. So I would say just be able to just go with it. Sometimes I know, at least for us at the MTA, there was difficulty sometimes getting projects because people sometimes are unsure. So just be like very, very intentional about what your goals are, I think will be really important.
Thank you. Peter?
Sure. I think my piece of advice, if you do end up being selected for this fellowship, is really to just try to make the most of it. I think it's an incredible opportunity, but 2 years is a relatively short span of time, as you'll find if you end up being part of the program. It feels like it's flying by, 4 months in already. So really take advantage and be ready to hit the ground running and try to make the most of the program. Fellows can definitely have different and varied experiences, but I think the fellows themselves have a role to play in making sure that the fellowship is successful and you're taking advantage of all the opportunities that are available to you.
Great. Victoria?
Yeah, I think it's, it's such a fantastic opportunity. And I think something that is, we didn't really talk about is that there's a major personal development aspect of it, that, this mentorship, the change, everything, it's a professional growth and a personal growth at the same time. And it's intense, but it's really exciting. And I also will say that it is what you put out. I'm talking about how fabulous Albany is and how great the program is, but it cannot be great if you aren't looking at the positives. You're not looking at the big picture. Some of the days are hard, but you have to make the most of it and see all of the beauty in it, all of the benefit of it, and be really honest on your application, and don't tell them what you think that they want to hear, because it's way too much of a commitment. Like Marco said, for it to be like a second choice or something, it really should be something you're fully committed to. Thanks.
Super. Jonathan?
Yeah, just following on from what Victoria was saying, I think it's a great opportunity with a huge if, which is if you want to work in state government. If you don't want to work in state government, it's a terrible place to be. And I think working in state government comes with there's a lot of things that I think you should go into it with your eyes open about. Everything that people say about bureaucracy is true. With that said, like the state has tremendous authority, and you can do I've just been amazed at what you can actually get done. It's not always easy. It's often very frustrating. There are going to be a lot of days when you want to pull your hair out. But if this is really what you want to do, I don't know how I would have gotten any job like this otherwise. So I personally am very happy. I think the only other thing that I would add that was really useful piece of advice that people gave me before when I was applying is your experience is really going to be dictated by where you're placed, and every agency is very different. They have different cultures. There is no sort of uniformity across the state, and where units within agencies have sort of like very different cultures and different work, sort of the way they work. So as much as you can talk to people, like as much as you're being interviewed, I think when you're going through the selection process, you should also be interviewing them, and trying to talk to as many people as possible to get a sense of very candidly what it's like there and seeing if you're a good fit for that. And there is a very, very big difference. I have this like weird dual role where I'm at an agency and I'm also in the governor's office. And I can tell you that there's a very, 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 very big difference between being at an agency and being in the governor's office. I'm happy to answer any more questions about that. If people want to reach out to me, I can put my email in the chat. But there are going to be positions you see listed that are at agencies, and you probably see a number of positions in the executive chamber, which is the governor's office. And those are very different jobs. They are different responsibilities, and they are a very different work-life balance. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Thank you. Joanna?
Thanks for giving me a little time to think. I wholeheartedly agree with Jonathan. And to echo a little bit of what Victoria was saying and what Fatima was saying. It's a great opportunity for people with limited work experience, but diverse work experience. Like myself, I had a lot of internships and random jobs here and there. And that actually sets you up with a lot of skills that are transferable, even if you don't have a whole wealth of knowledge in one specific area per se. But you have to be a driven person and willing to put yourself out there for these kinds of positions. It's not necessarily dog eat dog unless you're in, let's say, chamber. And I'm joking about that, but you do have to put yourself out there and draw on your experiences and what you know and do informational interviews. If you're serious about this, like most Excelsior Fellows are very happy to talk to you. I'm now calling on other people to do work without asking them, but I'm happy to talk to you.
Thanks, Joanna. Well, please, I know we lost some people, but please join me in thanking our speakers today, our fellows for coming back. And who knows, maybe some of you will be coming back next year to be part of this conversation as alumni and fellows. I'm sure some of you will. Any questions obviously some of the fellows have offered to answer questions, but as far as the application process, you can reach out to me or Samantha Bruno. We're happy to answer them. Personal statements workshop is next week. The deadline is January 24th. It's a Wednesday, and we look forward to your applications. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.